Everyone's been waiting to see when TJ Watt is going to sign his extension. But what if I told you the rumor's out that not only is he going to sign his extension after this next preseason game against the Panthers on Friday, but also it's going to make him the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. We're going to talk about if that's the right move to make him that paid that high and discuss what that's going to do to the Steelers salary cap moving forward. And, maybe it's just going to relieve some anxiety for Steelers fans out there. Joining me will be Josh Axelrod of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and Dean Iampietro of Channel 11 WPXI. I'm Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm joined, as always, on Wednesdays by Dean Iampietro of Channel 11, the WPXI TV in Pittsburgh, and Josh Axelrod of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We are the C, the I, the A, the agency here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Remember, you can download this podcast anywhere, but especially on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey. You can watch this podcast on YouTube if you are right now. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Gentlemen, our opening topic here is none other than TJ Watt. Arguably, I'd say even past arguably, the Steelers' best player. And the whole talk that has been all throughout training camp, when is TJ going to sign his extension? Because he hasn't practiced. He hasn't played in any preseason games. But at the same time, if you're listening to what the team's saying, they're kind of okay with it. Because this is a guy who makes his plays. He's been a superstar player for years now. They trust him to get better, and they're not worried about if he's going to be ready for the season opener. It's just a matter of getting the ink down on paper and getting him signed. But Gerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette coming out earlier this week and saying that you can expect that deal to be done shortly after the Carolina Panthers game this Friday in Carolina, and that it will make TJ Watt the highest paid defensive player in the league. Dean, is that something the Steelers should do? Some people think it's not the right move to pay a non-quarterback that much money.
Wow. Think about this for a sec. Oh, hell yeah. Pay the man. The dude is a perennial candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, and you can make the argument that he was robbed of it last season. He is a game changer. He is a game wrecker on defense. He is a leader. He is the guy you want on the outside, terrorizing quarterbacks across the NFL. Pay him like a quarterback? Hell yeah. You want to pay a franchise player the money. You want that guy to be happy. You want him to be the top paid player on defense in the NFL. That's what you want. That will make the guy happy. And you heard just a big whew when Gerry Dulac made that report. That was the collective sigh of relief from Steeler Nation. There's no worry here. There really never was. They're always going to sign this guy. It was creating the money. We've already seen the hints of it with the restructured contracts. And you've got a guy here who's been showing up at training camp, okay? He hasn't been in the full practices. He hasn't been in the games. He has been there every single day, working with his teammates, staying in shape, doing the right drills, doing the right things, saying the right things. He deserves every single penny he's going to get.
I hear. I mean, whatever the Steelers end up paying TJ, honestly, it's probably not going to be exactly what he's worth, even if he becomes the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Like, imagine if TJ made $1 million for every holding penalty he should have drawn last season.
Oh my God.
I mean, he'd be worth as much as the Steelers franchise, like, in total. That man is a wrecking ball who makes every offensive line and every quarterback tremble with fear. That is worth starting quarterback money, frankly, probably more than a lot of starting quarterback money. He's just the kind of guy that the Steelers, it was inevitable they were going to pay him, but the idea of letting him walk just was unconscionable. It would have been like what the Red Sox did with Mookie Betts just to save money, to jettison their best player to the Dodgers. He wins a World Series a year later. If the Steelers had done something like that, it would have just destroyed the fan base and their faith in Kevin Colbert. So give TJ his money. It's worth it. And yeah, let's just get on to the season with that whole thing taken care of.
Now, looking at across the league, the highest paid player right now in the league is Joey Bosa. He's I believe it's a $135 million contract, $27 million per year. So if he's going to get paid higher than that, maybe you're talking like $29 million a year. Maybe you're talking about $140 million, total in the contract over 5 years. And that kind of comes with the nature of whenever the newest superstar is signing, is that it's just higher than that guy. Like, when you look at some quarterbacks who, sign their contract and then 5 years later, they're like, whoa, I got gypped because there's guys signing contracts now that are way bigger than mine just because you're in a different era or like the salary cap's different. But the thing is that next year the salary cap does boom. And Josh, you brought up a good point, not letting star players. Dean, the Steelers don't let go of star players. They really haven't since like Rod Woodson. When you talk about guys who were in their prime, you think about maybe a Joey Porter, but that was also, there was a regime change coming with that. And there was other things that were going along with Joey Porter's situation, but it's very rare that they let that guy go. Especially on defense, like you could think like, okay, some top picks like Plaxico Burress have gone, Santonio Holmes, well, that was different because he had other issues. But TJ Watt is like the Steelers Captain America. You can't find anything wrong with the guy. He's spotless. He's just you just break him out the ice and he goes and beats up the bad guys.
Absolutely. And the Steeler Nation, listeners to this fine podcast, please always appreciate what you have in the franchise that you cheer for. They know when to let a guy go and they know when to keep a guy. Rod Woodson was a rare miss, and we're talking how many years ago?
Yeah, it was 96?
Yeah, something like that. They know when the time is right to let somebody go and when to keep a guy and when to sign a guy to big money. And TJ Watt is big money, and he's going to pay big dividends for this defense for years to come.
Also, real quick, shout out to Jerry Dulock, my Post-Gazette colleague, for breaking that news. I also just want to say, if TJ's Captain America, I think that makes Cam Hayward Iron Man and Minka Fitzpatrick Thor. That's now canon.
Cam can't be Iron Man because he is Iron Man, and he's like the guy that started it, right? Like he was. Cam's the oldest one, so like, wouldn't he be Steve Rogers? All right, we're getting too nerdy right now, but
that's on you.
It is on. Well, you started us on this path, sir. Also, if Jerry's wrong and it doesn't happen after this game, we're coming for you, Josh. We're personally holding you responsible if there's any wrong things that come out of this rumor. But I don't think
I'd be offended if you didn't.
But in all seriousness, this is something the Steelers do. I have expected them the entire time to sign him to a major deal. TJ Watt, this next age the Steelers are going to go through. They're not going to be able to or try. I don't think they're going to try to pay a mega quarterback mega dollars, but also you're going to have an expanded salary cap. Because here's the thing: TJ Watt's new deal most likely will be 5 years. If you draft a quarterback, say they do trade up in the first round, they go get their quarterback. Guess what? That means he's on a rookie contract for about 4 or 5 years. That's exactly the amount of time that it would take for TJ Watt to pay out the prime of this contract before they figured out what they would want to do next. This next era of Steelers football is going to be based on defense and running the ball with having a decent quarterback leading the way. And the thing is that historically, they've been able to win doing that. That's something that they're not afraid of. So certainly something interesting to watch here. When it does happen, you'll hear about it right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We're going to talk about some other moves the Steelers have made that impact the defense and what it might mean for them moving forward. We'll do that just after this. And I tell you about BetOnline.ag because it's that time of the year again, and all eyes are turned now to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the $500,000 NFL Mega Contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest, both open right now at BetOnline. Head to the website to use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo, which is making a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager wager will be refunded up to $25. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, right down to horse racing. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. You can download us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube. It's all great ways to get us. I'm Chris Carter here with Iampietro and Josh Axelrod. Now, continuing it rolling, the Steelers released another round of cuts on Tuesday, and among those cuts was a name that maybe some people were a little shocked to see, and that was Antoine Brooks, the team's projected starting slot corner going into training camp. The box safety out of Maryland, who was in his second year, has been hurt through most of training camp. After he played the first couple weeks, played in the first preseason game, he hasn't returned. And now the Steelers are kind of in a tough spot with the slot cornerback position because Arthur Maulet is also hurt. Now, Mike Tomlin did say on Monday that he's day-to-day and they expect him back anytime soon, but now you're in a position where you had three guys you looked at in the slot, and you just had to let go one. The other one's injured. The only other slot guy that you can really count on right now is Cam Sutton, and that puts James Pierre on the outside. Now, I talked to Tony Serino for Tony Tuesday about James Pierre because he leads the official James Pierre hype train. But I tell you now, this sounds to me like the Steelers, if they're letting him go, they're not going into this regular season without a veteran that they trust somewhere in their ranks at cornerback, whether it be outside to help solidify out there, or they go get a slot man who's going to help inside and take some of those duties off of Sutton so he can play on the outside. Either way, fellas, it just seems to me like it would be smart to go get some backup right now after you let go Antoine Brooks.
And they've already shown that they're willing to do this.
Yes.
They went out and got Melvin Ingram,
Trey Turner.
They're going to go get somebody. And when the final cuts are made, someone's going to be out there that may be an upgrade from Antoine Brooks. And they're going to find that guy. And in Colbert we trust. And, they'll bring him in.
He's giving me no reason but to trust him.
As I recall, Joe Hayden was brought in week 1.
Yep. Did pretty well with that one.
I don't expect something of that level to happen all the time, of course. But if Antoine didn't show enough, or if he was hurt, he didn't show enough. That means other guys are, and it's not just in the corner; it's on special teams too.
Yeah,
and that's a big and important part of it as well. When you're finding those role players and the backup players and everything else, you got to find guys who can fill all of those roles. Maybe he wasn't just getting it done. You always look for that one name on the initial cuts. You're like, oh, I know that name. The other four we weren't as high profile. But I think it's just a matter of, trusting what the Steelers do and that they have a plan for this.
Well, it's always sad to see a fellow Terp leaving Pittsburgh.
Wait, you go to Maryland? I never knew
what?
that.
Really?
Oh, did I not tell you guys?
You go to Maryland?
Never. You never said that on this show.
Never heard that.
No.
I'm a proud University of Maryland alumni.
Wow.
I didn't realize this was new information for you.
I had no idea.
Anyway, I've already heard rumblings that there's a chance that if Brooks isn't claimed on waivers, he could come back. So he might not.
That's definitely part of the plan.
Yeah, he might not be done with the Steelers, so we shouldn't eulogize him yet. Although, if he's been hurt this whole time, it's just a cold world where a 2-week injury can leave you out in the cold and fighting for your life after you were a legitimate NFL draft pick, less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The Steelers definitely need to upgrade their secondary. It's interesting because it's the only really phase of their defense they haven't upgraded, because they went out and they got Melvin Ingram for the line. They just traded for Schobert. And the secondary is just obviously they lost more than they gained there. So I'm with Dean. We definitely need to go out and see if there's a wily veteran out there, or wait for another disgruntled corner to want to trade. There's still, depending on what TJ ends up making, there's probably still going to be money left over that could land not a big fish, but like a medium-sized fish maybe.
Or you can trade Mason Rudolph and get somebody.
Oh, that sounds.
Look at you coming in and swinging at Mason. What Mason ever do to you, man? You was just chilling over here, and you just like, pow, get out of here, Mason.
Follow me on this for 2 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
He just came up with this.
What if the reason that they played Mason and didn't play Dwayne Haskins with the ones last week's game was to showcase him for a trade, and that all along they intend to keep Haskins and Dobbs?
You just blew my mind.
I mean, that I wouldn't put them outside the realm of possibility, but I would say that I still think that they want a guy who's been in their system ready to go as their number 2 right now, and they want to just keep developing Dwayne and see how he does. But to your point, the Steelers, I don't think, would take themselves out of any trade talks to boost their roster right now because they truly believe in this roster being able to compete. And, they're not.
Atlanta needs a backup. They lost McCarron.
I mean, that's the thing. If someone needs a quarterback, and here's the other thing.
Indianapolis needs a quarterback.
A lot of people are going to reach and say, "What about Patrick Peterson? What about Stephon Gilmore? What about these big names that we hear all the time because they're Pro Bowlers and such?" Think more about veteran guys. But then there's also guys you don't even got to trade for. I mean, the Seahawks let go of Pierre Desir, not a highlight cornerback, but a veteran who's 30 years old and knows how to play in NFL defenses. There are guys out there that will probably be available throughout the rest of the preseason, getting ready for the season, that you wouldn't need to pay all that much out in capital. And then maybe you keep Mason Rudolph and package him for something else, or hold on to him for next year because he's your only quarterback under contract in 2022. Point being, I think that this does mean the Steelers aren't going to sleep on adding to the cornerback position, whether it's outside, inside, or whatever.
Now I want them to get that other Pierre so we can have 2 Pierres in our secondary for no reason.
James Pierre and Pierre Desir. Yeah, that'd be really annoying to have to
be the most French secondary in the history of secondaries.
The French connection.
Dang, we're just making French jokes out here. Sheesh. Oh man, y'all are crazy. But okay. We got to cut to another break. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up. I want to talk to Josh about a story that he's working on that involves a famous former Steeler. We'll get into that just after I tell you guys about Built Bar. If you want a healthy treat that tastes like a candy bar, but is healthy for you, you want Built Bar because it's the protein bar for you. It's the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team, and it comes in so many different flavors. Whether you want a fruity snack like raspberry, strawberry, or orange, or something different like salted caramel, cookies and cream, Rocky Road, or my personal favorite, double chocolate. Built Bar has all the flavors for you to enjoy. And the best part, they're all healthy. They range from 130 to 180 calories, and they pack 17 to 18 grams of protein, but only 4 to 5 grams of sugar and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. That's a tasty and healthy snack that'll save you from eating that snack that you'll regret later and keeps anyone on task with their diet. Order today and get your favorite flavor delivered right to your door by going to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED 15, all capital letters, all one word, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. And again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, wrapping things up with Dean Iampietro and Josh Axelrod. And before I got to say, both of these guys were dancing to our interlude music here, which is the song Too Easy by Nerd Boy of Renaissance Music Records. They were like legit bopping back and forth. Now, if you recognize the beat, that is the Night in Tunisia beat. It's been reworked and sampled, but go check out Nerd Boy and Renaissance Music Records. They have a lot of great work here that we feature. All right, so now, fellas, I want to get to Josh. You interviewed a former Steeler who pretty important in the annals of Steelers history, who is on television making an acting. Is it a day? I think it's the debut, right? It's not an acting debut?
His series regular debut. This is the first time he's ever been a regular on a TV show. He had a small role in the CBS show SWAT, and then he had a small role in an indie movie. I think it's called Remembering Amnesia, something like that. And this is his first, true I want to be an actor kind of gig.
And who is this person?
None other than James Harrison.
Debo!
Yeah. Occasionally my beat actually lets me interview some Steelers. I talked to Willie Parker for a story, I think back in January, February. I've talked to Ryan Clark multiple times now about his gig at ESPN. And this one brought me to James Harrison, who is He is playing a character named Apocalypse on a show called
Ominous.
Heat. I know, right?
What? James Harrison is ominous. Okay, that makes sense.
It fits. The show's called Heels. It's on Stars. I believe as of this recording, 2 episodes are out. It comes out weekly. I think it premiered on the 15th. So whatever 2 Sundays ago was. It's a show about professional wrestling. It's about the Duffy Wrestling League in Duffy, Georgia. Very small time stuff.
Okay.
James Harrison, unsurprisingly, is a wrestler. It stars Stephen Amell, who you guys watched Arrow. You'll know his work. He's the proprietor of that league and the titular heel.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really interesting show. It's well done. James Harrison hasn't had an incredible amount to do in it yet, but he assured me when I talked to him last week that he would, and his character is very loyal to the Duffy Wrestling League because of what Stephen Amell's character and his brother did for him that helped him throughout his life. And most importantly, James Harrison does 100% of his own stunts, and his arms are basically visible at all times.
Well, so that's what I wanted to ask was, with James Harrison, I mean, the guy, we've seen James Harrison be James Harrison, in his younger days when he was getting interviewed, he was just he when he wanted to talk, he talked. When he didn't want to talk, he didn't talk, and he kind of lets you know, and he'd be very short with you if you asked him questions when he wasn't feeling it. And I got used to seeing that out of James Harrison, but acting in a role. Now I get that he's probably just the mean wrestler in this one and he takes on that role, but still intrigued by, he's not the mean wrestler.
Oh no, he's the nice guy. Frankly,
he's a nice guy. Wait. So James Harrison is a character in a TV show called Apocalypse, and he is the nice wrestler?
He's the wisecracker. He's got jokes.
Yeah.
I have to watch this show now.
It's a really interesting little show. And by the way, you can get my full interview in the Post Gazette on Thursday. I'll drop that in the Locked On
plug. There's the plug.
I'll drop that article in the Locked On Facebook group once it's online. Don't worry.
Please do.
The most interesting thing that Harrison told me that I feel comfortable revealing now is one of the reasons he chose acting was A, he wanted to challenge himself in something post-football, and B, he suffered from massive stage fright most of his life, to the point where during interviews, he could come off as really standoffish. But frankly, it was mostly because he was nervous.
Harrison standoffish?
No.
Never.
No, he never did that.
No.
But according to him, at least, the reputation he developed for being a little mean with the media had more to do with his general stage fright than with him having any animosity there. And acting has really allowed him to get out of his shell. And a show like Heels is great because he gets to use his physical stature to his advantage, while also, he's playing a legitimate character. Like it's hard to forget that he's James Harrison because he still looks like James Harrison. But he's got a real backstory. Like you believe he could be like a small town wrestler in Georgia. Let me just put it that way. It works. And again, he made it clear that he's doing 100% of his own stunts. I think he estimated most of the other actors on the show do about 85. But I think what I asked him was, do you find the idea of a show about wrestling to be kind of redundant since wrestling is scripted as well? But he was like, no. Those stunts are all real. The pain we feel is the same pain that wrestlers feel. So no. Don't go into this thinking that anything is fake beyond the scripted elements. The actual wrestling, I mean, Stephen Amell, I believe about a year ago, he almost broke his back. Like he suffered a real bad back injury.
Yikes.
Well, but yeah, it sidelined him from filming for a couple of weeks. So no, the wrestling elements are real. And Dean, actually, I think, he looks like he's itching, and he can talk to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Locked On family may not realize I have been a wrestling fan for about 40 years. And so I can tell you
longer than either of us have been alive.
Yes.
Fact.
Thank you very much for that. Both of you are jerks.
He said it, not me.
No, but we've all seen wrestling movies come down the pike. Okay. From No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan, Ready to Rumble. And honest to God, 90% of them are crap. Okay. And Fighting with My Family was decent. The Wrestler was pretty good, even though it was depressing. So my expectations were low going into this show. And I got to tell you, if you're a wrestling fan and you want to check it out, they're knocking it out of the park. And James Harrison his role again has not been big, like Josh said. I hope it does expand some.
He said it well.
He is playing it well. He's playing his character, and his acting is spot on. He is enjoyable to watch. He's had a couple of moments in the ring already. One where he got thrown out of a ring, one where he hit somebody with a clothesline that looked like it might have knocked them into next week.
James Harrison's arms. Just think about running into those things.
And he had the line of the series so far, which is, you want to either make them love you or love to hate you. And he delivered it perfect. And so it's a show we're checking out. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, the story of, trying to maintain things within a family and with the wrestlers and trying, there's a takeover attempt and everything else. There's other story with it that'll make it interesting for you beyond the wrestling. And James Harrison, watching him is really a treat to see how James is doing with this. And I think he's doing fantastic.
I just want to say I totally saw the whole stage fright thing when he slammed that Cleveland Browns fan when he ran out on the field. I mean, that was total stage fright right there. But here's the thing.
I'm only reporting what he tells me to my face. What can I say?
But this is my thing about this is that James Harrison holds an important place I think in Steelers history. Not just because of his interception return for a touchdown and what is still to me the greatest defensive play in the history of the Super Bowl, but also because of the tone that he set at edge rusher for years. I mean, nobody messed with James Harrison. That guy was an unstoppable force for so many years in the NFL, and he kind of embodied that Steelers don't mess with me vibe that Jack Lambert carried around with him during the 70s. And so, a lot of fans were endeared to him. Now that kind of got severed when he kind of had the falling out with Tomlin and the team, and then he went to play for the Patriots, and that became, so much. But still, to me, James Harrison will always be a legendary Steeler, and it's fascinating to see him go to take on a new challenge in life. And your guys are telling me that he's not just being the brute in the show; he's being the funny guy. He's being a guy that's relatable.
He's
I'm
a character.
Intrigued. I will check this out.
He's the voice of reason
for a stars package.
He actually is the voice of reason among all the other wrestlers.
It's Stephen Amell and his brother, played by Alexander Ludwig, who are the troublemakers. James Harrison is there just being like, guys, I just wanted to make this league work. You guys are ruining it. Look at my arms.
All right. So if you want to read more of Josh's piece, go check out the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on Thursday. That's when his piece will be put out there. You can also find all of us right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Dean, thanks for being on the show as always. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
On the Locked On group on Facebook, and then, of course, WPXI. Friday night, first night of Skylights with this guy.
Woo!
Next week on WPXI Now will be our first Fantasy Football Insider, sponsored by FanDuel and CalU, and it's going to feature this guy.
Woo! We got 2 shows coming up on Channel 11, y'all. Let's go.
Final word every Sunday. We're going to have the Black and Gold Zone when the Steelers season starts. We are kicking into high gear for fall with football. Let's bring it.
There we go. Josh, same to you. Let me know where we can find all of your work, including that article everyone's talking about.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Jaxelberg with an H. You can find me in the Locked On Facebook group, and you can find my work at postgazette.com. And if you like the James Harrison story, just, you can always subscribe to the PG. I got some good stuff coming out. We got American Rust coming out soon. The guy who directed Dear Evan Hansen's from Pittsburgh. I got some good stuff coming up. Just bear with me.
Always keeping us in touch with culture, Josh Axelrod is. Thank you so much both for being on the show. I'm Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques, as you see below here. You can also check me out on the Locked On Steelers podcast here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey, Monday through Friday, breaking it down. Thanks again for listening to our episode here. If you remember to rate us 5 stars with a positive comment, and you get a special shout out at the end of the show. Be back on your screens and in your ears on Thursday.